There are so many ways of pruning grapes, different training systems and pruning methods, and we couldn't possibly cover them all. But in this video, I just want to kind of take you with me with a little pruning session here to really share some key elements, some key things that I believe are going to work for you across the board, no matter how you want to prune your grapes. First, I want to just talk about the structure and the main components of any vine. If we look at this one, this is pruned in a training system called double cordon, which is popular in Napa, Sonoma. I just wanted that kind of look for a lot of these over here. So for this one, we're gonna see the main trunk, that's the first part, and then there are the main two branches or cordons, right? But the way that I look at this specifically is so that they are all part of your structure, like the trunk and the branches that you establish to keep year after year. To me is the first level. It's not that the trunk is first and the branches are second. It's actually all kind of number one, because this right here is all the main vine, and that's how the energy flows. Up from there, we have what are called the canes. So main branches, the canes that come off of it, and the canes are what are going to produce fruit. Now, depending on your training system, you want some of your canes to become part of that first level, which is your main structure. So right here, I don't want that for any more canes that come up. They're for fruiting and fruiting only, unless I want to expand how far each main branch goes, like over here. This cane from last year is going to be more main branch for me because I want to expand it all the way down to that pole. Over my patio over there, and you can even check it out with the lights on it and all that, I have more branches, but they're all part of that main structure. So I have like some trunks, and they come up and they split into many main branches, and I even allow some canes to go from one branch across the patio to become a main branch as well, because again, it's all about establishing your structure, and you allow or train your vine in where you want it to go. So once you have that main structure down, then you're going to think about pruning down to what are called the nodes, N-O-D-E-S. Like those are the little bumps, and let's show you some over here. Some little bumps on the canes that are coming out here and here and here, and this is where they're going to branch off and bear fruit. Again, this is a double cordon, so what I want to do with this is allow these to be cut back to a single cane, although these are now going to be called spurs because they end up getting thicker and thicker over time. This is older wood, and it gets thicker here. And I'm going to prune them back to only like maybe 1 or 2, 3 tops of actual nodes in which to bear fruit. And this really limits and minimalizes and simplifies your vine in order to get good quality, just high quality, good fruit. So typically, you want to actually get rid of this thicker area that's longer, because you don't want your spurs to get longer and longer each time. So as long as it's a healthy cane coming out of there, I'm going to go ahead and cut right here, especially because I want this to start coming upwards. For some reason it was growing downwards. And I'm going to count 1 node right here, a second node right there, and then I'm just going to cut. Now typically I like to cut right above where the node is, nice and clean, so that it really spurs on that growth. But with grapes, you actually want to cut a little longer, and that's because sometimes there's dry out and die back, especially from cold weather. We're in a cold weather climate here. If there's any die back, you don't want it to come all the way back and affect that node right there. So I'm actually going to give it like a 1/2 inch to almost 1 inch, and I'm going to make my cut right about there. Okay, and now I'm going to pull this whole branch. This is a long branch here, but again, you want to minimize and simplify your vine's growth. Okay, and then let's come back in on this one. Here's a good example of a huge principle that I also want to share with you, is that you always want to retain good and thick canes. Whether you're establishing more framework and more structure for a permanent branch, or you just want good fruit, You always want to get rid of your canes that are real thin and just not really doing much. They die easily in the cold, and they're also just not going to produce much fruit for you. And there are a lot of spiritual lessons in all of this. We're going to share that in another video, as we often do. But for now, let's just talk about getting rid of your thin cane. So in this case, so typically I'd rather use the base cane that's more thick and coming out so that it doesn't make the spur too long. But you can see that this just was not a happy and healthy and thick and vibrant cane. So I'm just going to have to get rid of that one and count 1, 2 once again. Make that cut right there. So that's going to be my second fruiting cane this coming year. So in the growing season, the fruiting canes are going to come off of this and here, and they're going to come up and on the wire. So again, always remember you want thick and healthy canes because those are going to provide the most quality fruit and structure for you. Here's another great example, because this is a couple of years into training, and so I already established where I wanted each spur to be. Remember, the spur is kind of where everything, where fruit growing canes come off of the main branch. And I'm going to cut once again here. So this is a nice base cane, okay, for it to fruit this year. So I'm going to get rid of this older growth here with the other cane, because this is, you could see where I made the cut last year. I made the cut kind of like the other one, and then it grew off of this node and this node. So I'm going to get rid of the furthest node and then count. Now there's a node right here at the base, but I'm not sure how good that's going to do. Again, I'm in very cold weather here in Colorado, so I'm going to count 1, 2, in this case 3. I'm going to cut that right there. This one I'm not very happy with. It's a little thin, but it's all I've got. So I'm just going to have to give that a cut, and hopefully it grows. I'm checking for dieback. And side note, you could always check the cambium layer over here. Probably not going to be able to see it too well in the focusing. It's just very thin. But as long as you can see green life in that cambium layer, you know that this branch is alive. Let's see, down here we have a very thin and fragile little cane. It's really not doing me any good purpose. There's not good spacing between here and here if this is in the middle of it. So I'm just going to get rid of, I'm going to cut all the way back to the main vine right there. So I have a nice hand width. And that's usually what they'll teach you, in viticulture, where you want to hand width apart, basically. Sometimes I kind of just cheat and just go with the flow of what I'd like to do in my own vineyard. But yeah, this is just a little too much here, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then this one, I think, yeah, I'm going to get rid of that as well, because I just want that nice spacing. So now I have one spur here, a spur here, and here. So I have that nice hand spacing right there. Okay, let's just finish this section right here. So we've got a node at the base right here. I'm going to cut right there. And again, this vine is not giving me a very good node at the base, so I do have to come up further than what typical vineyards will do. But again, I'm not in California. I'm in Colorado. Just to kind of finish this off, I'm going to keep this one because it's a strong one. This one's not looking very good, but I'm going to keep both of them because I need all the growth that I can get. So I'm going to cut there. I've got this one here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to cut there. And don't be afraid of really cutting your vines back, because grapes respond really well to pruning. It's hard to prune grapes too much. So this is a good branch right here for my cordon. Let's move to this one here, because again, I want to really highlight that principle of using thick canes that are growing really well for your fruiting and for your structural branches. I didn't do this well when I wanted to train it to 2 branches here. The way that you do that for a double cordon is to allow the first year some good growth, vertical growth to come up, and then that next winter look for your 2 best branches that are good, that are well positioned to run on either side, or just really wherever you want them to go, and then lop it all the way down to those 2 branches and allow those to take on your main structure. I didn't do that right, long story short, and it really didn't grow very well. This north-facing branch just all the canes off of it are thin. Again, they're flimsy. This branch is just not a good branch to sustain good fruit. So I saw another cane from last year's growth right here. You know, this cane just looks really nice. So this one is, I'm gonna train it to be the replacement for this right here because it's thicker. And so I'm gonna just get rid of this entire thing right there. So now I'm gonna allow this to establish my main frame. This is looking great on this side. I'm gonna do something similar to what you just saw on the other vine. Okay, so this one is a slightly younger vine, as you might be able to tell, and I've just trained it the right way for a double cordon. So this one I'm just going to prune the same way. I'm going to establish my main spurs that the branches are going to come off of. So this is very easy. I'm just going to do the same thing where I count the amount. You know, I don't have that old wood to cut off from last year. I'm just counting the nodes, and I'm just going to count 1, 2, and cut. 1, 2, cut. Okay, that one I'm just going to leave. This one's really sad, but I hope it comes back at that base node right there. Otherwise it's very thin, so, and it's nicely spaced, so I hope that comes. And then right there. And this one I should usually get rid of, but it looks like a nice branch. I'm gonna keep it. Could use a lot of growth. Okay, now it looks like there might be some winter dieback from this because we've had a really hard winter. We'll see how we do this year. So 1, 2, guess I'll go 3 on this one. And then this one, so I want this to go a little further to extend my branch here. And you know, I've heard that you only want to extend your branch about an arm's length per season to make it longer. I mostly agree with that, but sometimes it's really thick and it could really sustain that growth. So this one is okay, but it does thin out a little bit over here. So I think the arm length, or maybe even less, is really what's going to work on this one particularly. So I'm going to let this cane here be laid down and trained to the wire to continue my main frame or my main structure here. So let's go ahead and cut it right there, making sure it's alive, and it is looking good. I'm just going to hook it right there, and now I'm going to continue the branch here. Now over here I have one vine that got very severely winter damaged its first year, so I kind of had to reset and start all over. So right here, I'm actually kind of utilizing more of what they call the goblet training system, which utilizes just the main trunk, and then I'm training it down to just a few to several spurs with good nodes on each one. And you can do that. I could allow this to just be the way I do it every year, where each spur will create new branches that just branch off and up, you know, and out every single year and produce good fruit for me. On this one, this was a real mess. Like, there are just a lot of branches everywhere. I did this already, but this is a finished product. And this is cane pruning, where I lopped the main trunk off at 2 branches. I didn't have a good I wanted to use the branch that was right here so that it can branch off where I wanted it to, but that branch was very thin, it was spindly, it was not gonna work. So I selected one lower, and I also cut it off here so that I just have thick cane, and I don't want my vine to take on way too much long growth in one season. I want to keep it thick, and the vine will show you a lot of what you should be cutting off because it's either A, dead, or B, it's just really thin, spindly, you have way too many branches and they're just way too thin. So just really focus on that main frame structure and keeping your thick canes, and you'll always do well and you'll always get good fruit. So over my patio, I have a whole different training system. As you can see, many more main branches that I've established, but the same principles apply. I just want to prune it back down to good, healthy canes. And you'll see that some canes in time if they're healthy, I will actually want to train them to come across my patio to block the sunlight, provide shade and foliage. I'm going to train them across and then lop them once they connect. And then that cane is going to be part of that level 1 main structure from which now new fruiting branches, canes, will grow off of to bear fruit. So over here, you know, I've got a main branch and I've got some canes and spurs. Same principle applies. So these older wood pieces, like I'm gonna, you know, this is where I cut it last time. And so I'm not gonna cut it here. I'm actually gonna cut the old wood off and then cut it to a few different spurs right here to produce my fruit. I'm gonna do the same thing here. See this cane right here? We're gonna cut that one and we're gonna get rid of the older growth right there. Maybe prune that down to that. So this is gonna come off and produce fruit this summer. This is just kind of a mess, but this is spindly and terrible. See, this cane's not gonna produce good fruit. So I'm just gonna kind of let that one take over there. I'm always thinking about those thick canes and where I want the fruit to come out of. Here's a cut that I made last year, you know, 2 nodes. So 1 branch here, 1 branch here. I'm gonna cut the older wood back because this is my spur that I don't want to get too long. And then I'm gonna count 1, 2 and cut that. This is just not good. I think it's dead, so I'm just gonna get rid of that right there. Now if we come over here, same deal. So right here, I don't want it to get too long over here, so I'm just gonna cut back over here, 1, 2, cut. And always think about your structure, like you're in charge, you're the master gardener. Like this branch is heading all the way back over there, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna cut that back, and then just 1, 2, maybe 3, and allow that strong structure to pop out some growth next year. So I'm getting rid of all these canes that just aren't going to produce for me. This one is dead anyway. I'm going to cut that back. Just like that. So this main branch came all the way up, but I allowed this cane to become a main branch. And I'm going to tighten this up, lift it up a little bit, and clean all this up so that it's all ready as a good canopy for next year. So this is my concord that's growing on my fence, and it just gets out of control, lots and lots of branches. So again, it's gonna be a matter of me coming through and cutting off the canes that just are very small and, well, first off, again, dead or just very spindly, and they're not gonna support good growth. And you'll find that sometimes a vine like this will show you by actually allowing a lot of these smaller and thinner canes to die back. So I'm going to cut it all the way back. This is going to look much more clean. You're going to see a main branch and then just the thickest, healthiest canes branches coming off of that. So it's really minimizing and keeping a strong structure so you can support and sustain good, high quality fruit. Whether you have a 5-6 foot long vine or a 40-foot long vine, if you keep these principles in mind, your first level main structure supporting good, healthy canes, you will do well and you're going to get great fruit. I hope this helped at all. I just like to share these pruning thoughts. If you have any input or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and until next time.